Hello, once again. I've been thinking about the idea that people sometimes have about tribalism. I often come across it, and I came across it again today, people saying if people are ignorant, then they're running around acting like they're in some uncontrollable tribe. Neanderthal is mentioned quite a lot. But the idea that we are out of control if we're in a tribe, if we're prehistoric, I think we've really got to put this right and understand how tribalism works. It really does take the biscuit, as they say, when you think of the wars and the conflict that we suffer in our modern lives today. And yet, when something appears to be out of control, we immediately point the finger at early tribes, at prehistoric people, and say, when we lived in caves, we were pretty ignorant. We mustn't be ignorant now, so we've got to come out of the cave. We've got to grow up and become civilized. Perhaps you know exactly what I'm talking about, but it does need addressing. It's language. But it does a lot of damage in some ways because it educates people with the idea that prehistoric people, tribal people, were or are ignorant. And I don't know of any people who have more sense than people who live in tribes. Yes, they used to war with each other sometimes, tribes all over the world, but when you think of the sophistication of the modern civilized mind, when it turns to war, how ugly it is and how cruel it is. This isn't just charging on your horse next door to see about somebody who's got on your nerves. This is calculating and manipulative and cunning and deceitful. The modern world actually produces the capacity to be far more underhand about what we do because we've got this global recognition of the human mind. So it stretches our minds. We communicate all over the world as we do with technology, but it stretches the mind to accommodate a much more sophisticated idea of war and conflict and being ignorant. I just wanted to express a little bit about this because my own people lived in tribes. Romany gypsies lived in tribes. And yes, they quarrelled, yes, they argued. Who doesn't? It's in our human nature to argue and to have conflict. But, there's a big but, when we're talking about tribal people being ignorant and being stupid, and being unsophisticated and being unreasonable, and even being unemotional, that isn't exactly true. The values that tribal people had were far more, if you want to use the word sophisticated, you can, but they're far more sophisticated in a much more natural way, much more so than we can ever exhibit today. So it's the values I look at. The values of people who are living naturally with the land, who are being careful with what they do with the land, making sense of what the natural world and the other world is all about, so that they learn as they go through life, so that they resolve problems as they go through life, so that they prepare for an afterlife. So reshape your thinking. If you're tempted at all to mention the word Neanderthal, and I don't believe for 1 minute that Neanderthals were anywhere near as ignorant as people make them out to be, prehistoric people are just ordinary tribal people living their lives as best they can. So if you find yourself addressing this issue with those terms, just think again. Remember, places like Syria, places like Iraq, places like Palestine and Eastern Europe, they've all undergone such horrific, horrendous wars, courtesy of the modern, sophisticated, civilized world. Yeah, that's my rant for today. Talk to you again soon.